Hi guys, it's Friday and it's time for another FriYay Q&A. And so I was thinking, with all of the Halloween stuff lately, and really more and more nowadays, the people are becoming more familiar with witches, right? Witches of all kinds. There's Wiccan witches. There's natural witches, there's secular witches, there's witches very trendy right now, but it's also been actively witches are coming back, right? Not just because it's a trendy thing, but because actually people are really connecting with energy, with subtle energy. They're connecting more with nature, they're connecting with their intuitive gifts and senses in deeper and more noticeable ways. It's becoming more common to engage with the world beyond just our five senses, right? And more intimately with our five senses. And so I wanted to talk a little today about the word witch, the roles of witches, what it means to me. Y'all, please share what it means to you. And some of the stigma and myths around what it is to be a witch or to identify as a witch, you know? So, hi everyone, oh my gosh, there's so many of y'all there. Rachel and Lily and Kelby, hello. I'm at my friend Ryan's house today because I was here and the lighting was so great. I was gonna head out to do this video and she was like, why don't you just stay? And then my car's steering wheel locked up, which I know how to fix it now, but it I took it as a sign, maybe I'm not supposed to leave. So she just made me some delicious food and got me some water. And she's sitting here with me today watching. Maybe she'll be on next week. Maybe. She says yes. We might even do a cooking show for you guys. So let me take a sip. Look, there's rainbows. So what is a witch? Well, I think everyone has to understand what that means to them. Kitty says, I love the word witch, but some people get so triggered. Yes, that's one of the reasons I want to talk about this. Hey, Monique. Yes, Kelby, Ryan Blankenship. Is it okay that we're revealing your identity? Yeah. That Kelby, that Ryan. That's what I mean. Okay, so the word witch can be really triggering. It makes a lot of people really uncomfortable. And part of that is because of the stigma and the media portrayal around what a witch is. Yeah, Lily, there's so many rainbows. She's got a bunch of prisms in here. It's a great space. So witches, in media, obviously there's the Wicked Witch. There's the green face. There's the witch from Snow White. There's the evil sorceress witch from Sleeping Beauty. They have been portrayed as either really scary and mean or old, weird, ugly people, women primarily, in the media. And it's also seen as this something that seems kind of it's made up, right? It's from fairy tales. It's from stories. It's not real. And then as Wicca became a known religion, obviously hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago, there were a lot of people who were pagan who probably did not call themselves witches, but they practiced more earth-based, spiritual practices, and they had beliefs that were tied to the elements in nature and unseen energies, okay? And that is what is incorporated nowadays when most people, and I can't speak for everyone, but when most people who identify as witches, that is what they are intending. Wicca itself is a religion so there's Wiccan witches and what I'm calling secular or non-religious witches. And Wiccan witches actively worship pagan deities. They have specific, and sometimes they don't actually. They don't all worship deities. Sometimes it's more a connection with nature. But it is more, there's specific rituals and traditions that Wiccan witches follow because they have an active belief system that's been, written. There's writings, there's teachings, there's rituals that have been written out that people across places and times can participate in, okay? That's not the kind of witch I am. And it's actually part of why I resisted the word witch for a long time. Partly because of the stigma around it, partly because I wasn't religious. I didn't identify as Wiccan. And I wasn't seeking a religion to practice. Don't forget Christo-pagan, yes, there's so much, Kitty, and we're not going to get it all into it today, but thank you for sharing that. There's a lot of different people that use the word witch, and it means different things to different people. So much like with kind of anything else with a human, it's the same with most religions. Like someone can say they're Jewish or they're Christian or they're Muslim, but it can mean different things and they can express that in different ways. Someone can say they're a social worker. There's so many different kinds of social work. I am a social worker. I'm literally like a trained social worker. I call myself a supernatural social worker. I also call myself a professional witch because I am. I'm both things. And so looking at, as we're looking at how the word witch is used, just bear in mind that there is no like definitive answer for what that means. You really need to ask each individual person, what does that mean to you? Tell me about your experience identifying as or acting, being in the world, relating to the world as a witch. What does it mean to you? Okay? So that's I think that can open up a lot of dialogue, but can also be hard. I definitely have had multiple people in my life tell me that they're very uncomfortable with the fact that I identify as a witch, that I call myself a witch. And that's been hard because a lot of times it's people that I care what they think of me. I care how they see me. I don't want them to think I'm doing evil, bad things. I don't want them to take me less seriously in the work I do, the very like valid, real work I do that's important and meaningful to me and to my community because I call myself a witch. You know, and for a long time I avoided using that word because I thought people would dismiss me because of it and would judge me. And you know what? They do. There are people that dismiss me and judge me because I choose to identify more openly now as a witch. It took me coming into my own understanding of what that word meant to me, of what that role meant to me, and realizing how deeply and fully I embodied what I consider a witch to be, to feel comfortable identifying as a witch. And your own journey to that, like you might be on the fence with it. It took me years to be comfortable openly being like, I'm a witch. Sometimes I would be like, I'm kind of a witch. I might be a little witchy, you know? And before that, it was just flat out resistance. Like, I'm not a witch. Like, I'm a Reiki practitioner. I'm a meditation teacher. I'm a social worker. I had a lot of resistance around it for a while. And someone asked me the other day how I became comfortable identifying as a witch. And it was actually like my therapist, my amazing therapist, was really helpful in pointing out certain things and helping me see things in a different way and helping me explore my own resistance to the word witch and to that identification. I'm going to pause because some of y'all are having some comments and I want to make sure I see them. Heather says, you are so good at explaining. Oh, I'm so good at explaining everything. Thank you. I'm not that great at explaining everything, but hopefully this is making some sense. And I appreciate the comment. And then Monique says, I come from a family of witches, or where I'm from, witch doctors. Yes. It has been practiced in my family for generations. However, our tradition is being lost. I'm the last of 3 practicing in my family. It's huge in Caribbean culture. Thank you, Monique. And you are a potent witch. And I'm glad you are not only carrying on the tradition, but from what I've observed and experienced with you, you are making it more authentic to our current times, to where and who you are, and like kind of evolving your own lineage. So that's incredible. And that's happening a lot these days. So a lot of when you do come from a background, I didn't come from a background of witches. or people practicing witchcraft. I grew up with a Southern Christian family going to church every Sunday. And so, but building fairy altars in my backyard, like all the time, and like talking to things that people couldn't see and things like that. So I didn't grow up with that tradition. And there are lots of people that did. And nowadays, like, especially if you live in the US or somewhere that has people from a lot of different cultures, that has more diversity. One thing I'm seeing that's happening that's kind of cool, and I can also see how it could be challenging, is taking like the ancient traditions or the ancestral traditions, and now there's so much blending happening. And sometimes it's like the not good kind. It's like total cultural appropriation, right? Totally happens. But there's also genuine blending happening from like, you know, my ancestors were raised in this one place with these specific traditions and practices, but my day-to-day life isn't that. Like, I grew up in New York, I grew up in Atlanta, and like to be a witch for me is to be very authentic and true to who I am, where I am, the energies at play in my life and my world and my reality. And so it's one of the reasons I'm not a religious witch, because working with like prescribed rituals and traditions just doesn't work for me. That's not what I'm called to. I'm called to be very guided in my practice, which means the things I feel guided to do when I'm working or engaging with energies for energetic support, for healing, for balancing, for whatever I'm doing, for land clearing, all of that. It's not going to come from a book. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with religious traditions and rituals. There's power and beauty in those. My journey is different, and my journey is about kind of working with the very current energies. So a lot of people nowadays, even when you're coming from a more traditional background in witchcraft or land-based, you know, spiritual practices, there's a lot of change that's happened. There's a lot of evolution. And so how you uniquely embody your traditions, but also incorporate who you are now into that. Hope that makes some sense. Am I making sense, Ryan?
Yes.
I'm making sense. Okay, good. So I'm seeing if there's any. Oh, I need to make sure I don't put my finger right there. I'm learning. I don't have my normal stand today. Ryan has helped me prop up a whole bunch of books to hold my camera so I can do this. So some other things I wanted to talk, the questions I get a lot, and feel free to, you know, keep sending me your questions as well, and sharing your own experiences with, like, how did you come to identify as a witch, if you do? Where are you on your journey with that? And maybe you don't, you know? So one of the questions I get a lot is like, what exactly do you do? What does a witch do? Hi, Patty. I love you so much. I feel you. Whenever you like watch, I can feel your energy. And I think it helps ground and focus me. So thank you for that. Anyways, so today, one of the things I want to talk about is today's All Souls Day. Sometimes it's known as All Saints Day, Dia de los Muertos. It's a day for really honoring and acknowledging our deceased and departed loved ones. I prefer the term transitioned because in my experience in working with loved ones who have died, it's more of a transition. Like, the ones that come through for me are often very insistent that they're not dead and they're wanting connection and relationship with us. So one of the things that I do, not all witches do this, but a lot do, is because we are able to be more in touch with our subtle senses, our intuition, and oh my goodness, the doorbell rang and the dogs are barking, and what is going on? It's totally fine.
Excuse me, it's my friend.
Oh, we have a friend coming. We have a friend joining. Surprise! So that was not subtle, but sometimes it's like that. If you're a witch, sometimes it's like the energy just shifts. So that was a really good analogy of like, sometimes the dead folks just drop in. And for me, y'all might not see anything. Well, most of y'all would. But for me, it's like literally like that. So having to walk through the world with that same juggling, like being in two worlds at once, can be a part of being a witch. Working with those who don't have bodies and are just as real and alive and present for me as those who do. So sometimes people are talking to me and I look totally zoned out. And I know growing up, my parents sometimes would get really frustrated because they would have a hard time getting my attention. It's kind of because like there's a lot going on that a lot of y'all aren't seeing. And I am, and I'm aware of it, and it's engaging with me. Obviously, I've learned over the years to set better boundaries, right? But sometimes, especially if you're new to being a witch, it might be like that. Like, it's just like coming in. Are there things you can do about that? Absolutely. And that's where it comes in, like actually learning about energy, learning ways to ground yourself, to set proper boundaries, etc. So a large part of what I do as a witch, I don't know why I'm even doing that. As a witch, I am a witch. Is the real thing, is really being aware of energetic boundaries for myself, for others, for the land, all of it. I move through the world with a conscious and constant awareness of energy, of where my energy is, of where the energies around me are, etc. Oh wait, Kelby has something to say. I felt the same thing about folks not resonating with the word witch and not taking me as seriously, but I have this year begun to claim it regardless of their opinions. Yes, high five on that, fist bump, I'm with you. And we can support each other. And that's why it's really helped me to have what I call my sister witches and my other friends who also identify as witches. And to like, there's power in numbers, right? There's comfort in numbers. There's a sense of belonging, but also a sense of like, I can stand here on my own because I know I'm not the only one doing that. So, Tracy, hi, I love you. So, with it being All Souls Day, All Saints Day, Day of the Dead, I did want to address a big part of the work I do. It's not at all the only work I do, but a big part of the work I do is connecting with those who aren't in their bodies anymore. And we talked about this in the first Q&A I did that kind of launched this whole series, the Ghosts and Spirits Q&A. So if you haven't seen that, go on YouTube and you'll find it there, or scroll back in my Facebook and it's there too. YouTube's probably easiest. But there's a lot of different ways to work with energy, and it works differently for different people. And connecting with those who have transitioned is a part of the work I do. And helping people connect with their own loved ones who have transitioned is another important part of the work I do. So as a witch, I'm not only working, and some witches only work with energy and nature. Like, that's it. They're very private. They work with herbs. They work with land. They do geomancy, which is like, working with the energetics of the earth, of the land. I am also someone who works with people, and a lot of the witches, especially from like ancient times, were people. They were like the medicine people in their community, the healers, the midwives, the shamans, the witch doctors, all of that. There's different terms, and I do think those terms do mean different things, but in a similar vein, in a similar line of work, right? Oh, Rachel's a sunflower, yes. Oh, I love it. I'm going to cry. It's a day to really connect with our loved ones who have transitioned, and they do send us signs. There's 2 rainbow orbs on both sides of you as you're speaking. Yes, and actually there's a lot of rainbows in this room right now. My friend has prisms. And oh, look, there's one. See? Rainbows are special. So, yeah. I had a couple trains of thought going at once. That's the other thing. Oh, being a witch, I work with people. And a lot of the witches throughout time were people who worked with people. Like, especially if people know you're a witch, it's usually because you work with people. Although there are those, like, women that just, like, kind of do their own thing and work with plants and animals and things like that. But a big part of my work is to work with actual living, breathing people plenty of people that don't identify as witches, just people in my community, people in need of support, people in need of resources, in need of guidance. There's a sweet dog in here right now, and I'm really excited. Oh, hi. Thank you. Working with animals. I work with animals a lot. Part of that is the Reiki. Like, they love Reiki. Not all animals, but this dog definitely does. And her daddy died a year ago, and she's now living with my friend, and we've been giving her some extra love today. So this is part of my work in action. She can feel her dad has been very strong here today, right? We were doing some work about honoring and connecting with loved ones that are no longer in their bodies, and so she's super affectionate and very grounding as well. Thank you for being here. So sometimes I get called to people's houses because there's stuff going on with their animals and they need to know what's up, and I'm able to sense into that, again, because of the subtle senses and energies that I'm able to sense. That's basically what my work comes down to, is being able to be an interpreter of energy. Yeah, and work in ways that invite more love and balance. Hi, Veronica. We missed you at meditation the other night, but I recorded it, so hopefully you can do it. I lead guided meditation journeys for people. That's a part of the work I do as a witch. I've acted as doulas for people giving birth, for people who are transitioning out of this life. All kinds of stuff. All kinds of stuff you do as a witch. Sometimes my work is with the land, and I am giving offerings to the land. I go to rivers. I go to sacred spaces. I go to places with really dark, dank, stagnant energy. I go to places where trauma has happened, and work with the trauma imprints in the land. So it's very varied, the work I do. Sometimes I'm making flower essences and stone elixirs. Sometimes I'm just receiving. I'm just sitting in a beautiful space, eating delicious food, drinking really clean water from the earth. I love spring water, y'all. It's special. What do you need? You need to give me some kisses. Thank you. Is there anything else do you want to say something to these people? They're watching. Lots of kisses. Yeah, your mommy's gonna come back. Your new mommy. She's coming back. There's hair all over me, y'all. I love it. And I'm wearing black pants. Oh, you are so sweet. Thank you. So, being a witch is pretty fun, and it's pretty special, and it's also just kind of normal these days. Like, I toss it around pretty casually, but some of the stuff I run into is my kid will be like, but mommy, what do you do? What do I tell people that you do? And so I give them other terms because I know it's not always comfortable to say witch, but I also don't want to shy away from that word just because other people aren't comfortable. Because part of it for me is claiming the word witch because people have a misunderstanding of it. So I'm here to show them, here is one example among many of what a witch is and can be, which is probably going to challenge what you think it is. In some ways, I totally live into some of the stereotypes, but in a lot of ways, I don't, and I'm hoping that, like, he can feel comfortable sharing with people, oh, my mommy's a witch. Here's what she does. She does Reiki on people. She teaches meditation. She is a social worker, which is a lot of witches, especially if you're a witch that works with people, you are a social worker. That's social work. You're creating healing within your community. You are creating spaces of empowerment and resource sharing for people to live their best, most fullest lives. That's social work. Ideally in a beautiful, holistic relationship with the world around us. Witches care about stuff like that. We care about balance. We care about not stripping the earth of its resources. We care about protecting and honoring and moving through our days with reverence for what is here, both energetically what is here, what was here long before us, and also what supports us, what makes it possible for us to actually be here in these bodies, living the lives, breathing the air, drinking the water. Like, I move through my day with gratitude for the things that are around me. Not always. I'm not saying I move through my day as this like blissed out ideal human either. That's not what I'm saying. But part for me of being a witch is making that as much of a priority as I can while still being very human, that I'm trying to move through my day with as much appreciation and connection to the world around me as possible. So I move a little slower. Sometimes I go real fast, but a lot of times I move a little slower than most people. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to share about being a witch. And if y'all have any other questions, send them my way. But it's not scary. There can be some, you can make it scary, right? You can do some like dark magic. You can like work with some really intense energies. But by and large, it's a really beautiful, joyful thing. Oh, Kitty, I appreciate you. I love your gentle confidence. So many that are outspoken are not so open. That is true, right? And I think that's why it's become increasingly, especially in the past year, it's become more clear to me and important for me to speak up and to identify more openly as a witch. That it's not the only thing that identifies me. I'm someone that I really don't like labels, period. But also, like, words matter. Words have power. And so if we're going to use words, I'm going to hopefully have an influence on how those words are interpreted. And witch is a word that is wildly, largely, often misinterpreted. And so hopefully part of what I'm doing is breaking down some of that stigma. And that you can identify as a witch and be completely different from me. And it can mean something different to you. And these are conversations we should be having because it is becoming more popular. It's not just trendy. It's not just a stereotype. The divine feminine is very much alive and potent and active right now. And that's a part of why we're seeing so many people rise up and claim themselves as witches. At least that's my take on things. So, I'm going to wrap this up. But I hope y'all have a great day, and I can't wait till next week. I'll be back with another Q&A. Kitty, wait, one more comment. I've been reclaiming the word witch since 1998 and has gotten better and easier in the last few years. Oh my gosh. And thank you for doing this way ahead of the game and the trend and all of it. I mean, that's important too. Like, we have so many people to thank for kind of paving the way for this rise in women claiming themselves as witches. And not just women, obviously, but people claiming themselves as witches. And it has gotten, right? It's a lot easier nowadays because now it's cool, right? Now it's cool to be a witch. Not by everyone. Oh my God, I love how those rainbows just like on my face now. The sun is moving. But, it is easier. Just like, I mean, I was a vegetarian when I was 8, and it's so much easier now. Now I can go into any restaurant and get really good, healthy food. It was real hard when I was little. So, thank you, Tracy. Mwah, 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 mwah. I love y'all. I love y'all. I love y'all. I love y'all. Oh, and I'm just showing my shirt. My friend sent me this, and it was perfect. And she actually sent it the same week. My mom was like, I really wish you wouldn't call yourself a witch. You're a mom. You're a wife. You're a daughter. And I'm like, yes, Mom. And I love you. And I'm sorry it makes you uncomfortable. But also, I'm a witch. I am. And I'm proud without having to like totally scream it from the rooftops. Although I do need to a little bit these days because this is one example of a witch right here. Nothing to be afraid of, except you should be a little afraid. All right. Love y'all. Have a great weekend.